Youngman, is that correct?
Yes.
So Elsa has her PhD in analytical chemistry. And is that a specialization in skin delivery?
It was a long time ago, but
Yes, well, I've noticed you've been busy, but most recently as well, you are the founder and CEO of Hello Biome. And you also have your skin microbiome data platform under your own name as well. And you are the advisor to many skin brands and constantly advancing beauty and consumer health with AI and microbiome science. So thank you so much. It's really nice to speak to you today. I'm interested to know how you got into skin microbiome.
that's because to describe my background is more in skin barrier, skin delivery, meaning I was studying during my master and PhD, and even after that, how ingredient in a product, whether it's a therapeutic product, a sunscreen, or a beauty product, once they are on your skin, on your body, how are they going to penetrate and interact with your skin? So I was doing all those studies for both research around safety, but also around efficacy. And when I was studying the skin barrier function, that way we were talking a lot about the stratum corneum, that is the top layer of your skin, that acts as a brick and mortar system to really protect you. It's called the skin barrier function. But at the time of my PhD, I think it was almost 15 years ago now, we never talked about the microbiome as part of the skin function. We knew we had a skin flora. That's how we described it in my skin physiology group. And we said it has an impact on pH, but that was it.
Right.
And we would study it a bit for dandruff or antiperspirant, very specific cases. But in 2016, after I moved to San Francisco and started working with local biotech companies, I started working with a company called Hello Biome that was pioneering microbiome research and live probiotic for skin health. And at the beginning, I did not understand much about their focus, but very quickly I understood that actually we are more bacterial than we are human, and that all these microorganisms that we have on our skin and our body have a huge impact on our health and on our well-being. And that's how I became fascinated by it, because it made also a lot of link with all my previous research, more on the stratum corneum, skin barrier function, to realize everything is connected. And you have to take into account the skin microbiome when you talk about barrier function. You cannot just separate them both. It's part of your protection. On the skin, it's really like a brick and mortar system that protects you like a wall would protect the house. And if your skin is disrupted, let's say you have a sunburn, you're suffering from eczema, psoriasis, often what we see is that the stratum corneum doesn't have that cohesion to limit the penetration of irritant and other compound into the skin. And this also creates more inflammation and reaction.
Right.
So that's what we call the skin barrier function.
The skin barrier function. So can you explain to me, as a novice with all of this, so what is that difference between that skin barrier? Because as you said, we hear about the skin barrier a lot. Is that the same thing basically, or is
So
it?
now we say that the skin barrier and skin microbiome works together, and that the skin microbiome is part of the barrier function, because on top of your stratum you have that layer of microorganisms like bacteria, fungi, even virus that are here also to protect you. And we see that when that layer is disrupted, if you lose some good bacteria or that you have more pathogenic one, it can be linked to different skin conditions or skin profiles. So that's why you have to take it into account. For example, if you have eczema, often your stratum corneum is not really cohesive like it should be. And we also observe that you tend to have less Cutibacterium acnes, that is normally a bacteria really present on the skin, and have more Staphylococcus type of bacteria on the skin that can be more pathogenic in that condition.
Right. So is that due to our environment or our genetics or a bit of both?
It's holistic. It's the environment, your body well-being, all of that will have an impact on what your skin function and skin microbiome look like. But also there is genetic predisposition to certain profile, but it's not just genetic. Genetic is just a piece of it.
Right. And so are we just hearing about all of this now with the skin microbiome because it is something that people are starting to study and explore and research? Or has it been around for a long time, but it hasn't broken over to the public?
It's been around a long time, but I think what has made a lot of difference in the past 10 years and made the topic really explode in the recent years is the access to data and also the DNA sequencing that is more affordable. There are more and more techniques that give you access to more insight about those microorganisms that were not available 10, 15 years ago. It was extremely expensive. I'm not sure about the price, but for example, one data point maybe 10 years ago was $500, whereas today it's going to be 100. So you can do so much more. So I think that's what has revolutionized the field.
And this is where people can start to actually get specific skincare for their skin needs rather than.
So yeah, I see it in two ways. One way, it's about understanding our skin profile and condition based on microbiome information that you can do thanks to different type of sequencing analysis. And on the other side is how you formulate and create product for a specific microbiome. And there are different ways to do it when it comes to the product itself.
And could you actually, even though I can imagine there's hundreds of different types of skin microbiome and or guess different groups, but could you actually start to put them into?
Yes, so that's actually the research we do at Hello Biome. What we do is that through the clinical data we collect, we aggregate all the data together and we try to understand, based first on the microbiome information, like the sequencing information, how do we all differentiate? But within those differences, what are the patterns? If you take, let's say, 1,000 people, yes, they all have a unique microbiome, but within that group of 1,000 people, maybe you're going to observe like 5, 10 distinct groups about specific patterns, specific level of bacteria or fungi that are representative of people that can be found across them. And we do that with what we call unsupervised machine learning because we don't know what we are looking for. And with those techniques, we're trying to really understand what are the specific clusters being observed. And then when you start seeing cluster and that you collect more and more data, you arrive to a point of saturation where, let's say, you realize in the population there are actually 20 clusters for microbiome, and maybe cluster A is going to be more with this type of dry skin in young people. Cluster B maybe is more like oily skin for people living in northern states. I made that up, but that's what you're going to see because you will link the cluster based on sequencing also with other type of data based on age, demographic, location, ethnicity, and so on, to really understand what drives those differences. Once you have your cluster and you have defined cluster, that's when you can apply artificial intelligence and, for example, train a classifier. Because now we know what we are looking for, and when we have new data coming in, seeing if it's not an expert saying this sample goes to cluster A or B, having an algorithm that can automatically classify and put it in a group, but you need to make sure that it's well trained. And that's another type of model you build after.
Wow. I've also seen that written, I think you might have written it somewhere, that if you have good microbiome, it can actually give your skin 60 to 70% natural sun protection. Could you explain a little about that?
There have been more research recently on natural sun protection and microbiome. I guess this is also linked to the barrier function. If you have a healthy, balanced skin, you're less prone to get severe sunburn, but I would really be careful with those statements and observation because that's early research and finding. And today there is still an explosion of skin cancer due to sun exposure. So I think it's very important that people don't think, oh, I use this probiotic, so now I don't need sunscreen or I can expose myself to the sun.
Exactly. Well, because it's still not 100% right. And even if you have a high sunscreen, it still allows a little bit of UV through. So
it's still research. So that's why you have to be very careful and choose carefully the right sun protection for you.
Fantastic. Is there anything else that you want to add, something that you're really excited about in the skin microbiome area? Or?
No, I guess I'm super excited to see more and more initiative around the microbiome and skin health. This is great to see that even the small indie brands, new businesses, even who don't necessarily have a lot of budget to get started, or sometimes even bootstrap, really have that focus on making sure they are doing good product and that they will be respectful of the microbiome. So I think we live in an exciting time for that, because when I started 5 years ago, that was not the case. And now I feel like more and more people are aware of the importance of the microbiome, and I think we're going to see more and more innovation in that space coming in the next year or so.
I hope so as well. It's a really interesting area. Thank you so much.